Okay, now we are live. All right, so thank you for joining us this evening. I'm really excited about this part of the program because I'm learning a lot as we go along, doing extra reading and figuring out how to apply it to the kids. I think we have a lot of areas that we can really make a big impact. So I wanted to review why we are here. Why are we here, meaning here at Kumon, why you enroll your kids. And, just to kind of review and kind of commit again to help them be successful, have a great education, and develop these skills that are going to help them not only with Kumon and not only in school, but actually beyond school. They're just important across the board. So we're using Kumon as a tool to develop discipline and help them develop self-discipline, help them take responsibility for their learning and how to learn. And Kumon is a self-learning program. I don't use that word a lot because I don't know that people understand it. Sometimes I think especially when you're new to Kumon, if you hear self-learning, you're thinking, oh, well, you don't do anything. But what our goal is to help them not need tutors and help them be empowered to learn on their own. And so, it's one thing to learn in higher level math skills and higher level reading skills this way, but it also helps them realize how to learn things they don't. So if they have a science problem they're not understanding, learning how to learn from the examples given in the book and how to break things into smaller steps so that they can start to understand it. So the Kumon method is a methodology of taking something that's really complex and breaking it down into smaller steps, into starting with something easy and working up to things that are harder. And my overarching goal here is really to develop a love of learning. Look, these kids have to be in school for a very long time. And right now, and the more reading I'm doing, I'm heartbroken at what school has become, kind of the system of school, as are I think the teachers a little heartbroken, where they're sucking the fun out of and the love out of school with the emphasis on the test rather than helping them just love to learn. Because if they love to learn, then the tests are going to take care of themselves. Oops. So, and I've decided that I've actually officially drunk the Kool-Aid. I sit in these meetings for Kumon and they come up with the Toro Kumon and they talk about him and it is true, though. When I read this, he really was a humanitarian, and his goal was to help develop a love of learning, and doing that by keeping kids right on the edge of their learning, and just on the edge where it's challenging enough, where they are engaged, and not too hard that they're overwhelmed, and not too easy that they're bored. So that's really my job, is to find that edge that they need to be on. In order to keep all of those pieces going for the kids. And what I'm reading, I'm doing a lot of research about brain development and with respect to learning. And it's just fascinating to me. And I wish I knew this. I mean, luckily by accident, I did a lot of the right things when my kids were little. But really, you've got this window when the kids are younger to really expand their potential, and we want to do that. So I look at it, they have more time before they hit high school, but you also have this window where they really are sponges, and that it's easier for them to learn. And so really maximizing, which is what Kumon does, maximizing that window that we have to help them. So when they're studying high-level reading and high-level math, they're really expanding and strengthening their brain, and setting themselves up to be able to do more challenging work when they, as they get older. And what we're also trying to do is really move them to help them develop a a growth mindset. And you may have heard that Carol Dweck wrote a book called Mindset. And I'm almost done it, Rob, by the way. I have like 50 more pages. It's not a super easy read, in my opinion, some of it, so I'm digesting it in pieces, and I keep picking up other books in between. But it's so important. And I don't know, by luck, I ended up with, I think, a growth mindset. And I think Kumon has made me even stronger in that area because of the things that it's developed in me in order to be able to do my job. But when I see kids struggling with a fixed mindset, it really is, it gets in their way. And so really Kumon can help them learn by their mistakes and be confident in their learning. And so it's another tool that we can work to help develop that mindset. And finally, I am pushing Kumon to do more data, to do more studies and have hard data. And I really think I might have a chance of nudging them in that direction. But they've done a few different tests over the years. And this one, unfortunately, it's old data. I think this was 2006. But it shows that the stars on this it's an algebra test in high school, so 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, and then geometry. Standardized test, and I do believe this was in California that they did. But it shows that the average Kumon student is well above where the kids are falling, the kids who don't do Kumon. And so when I talk to, unfortunately this is just math, it's not showing what the reading program does, but it shows you that, all these other things I'm talking about, all these soft skills and important things I think in Kumon, also at the end of the day, you get those really strong math skills that you want. Okay, so how are we going to get all the benefits of Kumon without pain? And I say pain because it is painful to have a child who does not want to do Kumon every day. I completely can understand that. So that's what we're here to work on today. So I have Coach Rob is with me to help us really unpack how to motivate your child and how we're trying to help your child motivate themselves. So we're here to work on motivation today. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn the next piece over to Coach Rob.
Okay, thank you, Connie. We're going to be covering the items listed: empathy, deposits, communication, expectation, negotiation, check-in, benefits versus consequences, and enthusiasm. And this is a major part of communication or motivation with communication to the children. Do I have control here, Connie? Okay, you do. Okay.
If you want, you can take control if you wanted.
Yeah, why don't you? I'll flip it then.
Okay.
And then we both can have it.
Got it.
Okay. The vision. I start out with everything I do with any young adult or even an old adult like myself is, what's the vision? What do you really want from here? What do you see? And as we put it on there, what's the parent's vision versus the children's vision of being in Kumon especially? But I'm going to stick with the children right now. What do they see that they want? And for many, many adults, let alone children, having the vision of what they want is very, very difficult and challenging because they're not sure. So what I do ask is, what is it that you don't want in life? And a lot of the answers would be, especially when it comes to the academic part or the educational part, is not to feel not smart. Be able to feel smart, be able to feel that they're with their peers and all that. So a good part of what the vision is with Kumon is, how do you want to come out of here? What's your, I'm going to throw the word goal in there. What's your goal to come out on a positive note? And what do you want for your children, and does it match? It's an easy way to find out what they're thinking. They ask them to write their vision, and I highly recommend they do that. Write their vision of what you want to accomplish, especially at Kumon, or even a vision of themselves when they get into middle school or into high school. It gives you a little more clarity of seeing where they're at and what they're seeing. If they don't know, you can help them through that. Part of the vision process, although it comes under the responsibility umbrella, is, do they know their expectations, your expectations? And it's very, when you use the word expectation, sometimes people say that it's maybe too much. But let me put it to you this way: they deserve to know what is expected of them, not in the type of person they are, but what is expected of them, especially related to Kumon and their education. And I kind of has come up with this, and I like the way it synchronizes what our thoughts are. Do they know that their job is their education? Especially where parents are both working, and many families that do, and or for mom as a stay-home mom, that's her job. Well, why not define this as their job? Because it lends to responsibility and it gives them a title to do. Their job is their education, to understand and to learn. And then what's the benefits?
In my house, we joke around and that their job is to get educated. So that is their focus.
Yeah. So, and a big part of this, and I know you've been part of the scheduling process, the reason that we were trying to enforce about putting in their free time, their time, whether the child's name was, their time is to earn it by doing what they have. We live in a great culture of entitlement, and although I don't think there's a malintent with this, many of the children just feel that they're entitled, that the game playing or the phones or whatever they feel that they have, there's a sense of entitlement and not to earn it. With that comes a lack of responsibility. It's actually polar opposite of responsibility and entitlement. So what we're trying to do is shift the mindset, as Connie was saying, the mindset into seeing what their responsibilities and what's expected of them, followed by their vision.
Do you want me to switch it? Do you have?
It's not scrolling for me.
Okay.
Okay. The emotional bank account. We've had this conversation, and if you notice, I read deposit. What I suggest, and so highly suggest, is when parents are, dealing with children that are overwhelmed or stressed or, resisting against certain things, a lot of it has to do with their self-worth, self-esteem. They feel, if they're overwhelmed, they're feeling less smart, if I may. So what we want to do is really build on that emotion. And when I talk about making a deposit, it is something positive. And the way I explain it, especially when I'm talking to parents, is that make the deposit of something that they're doing well, and don't go into it big. Make the deposit you're proud of them or what a good person they are, even if they're struggling. Make that emotional deposit in their bank, because that's what elevates them. And not to have a big discussion. Give them a positive reinforcement and kind of walk away. I've seen it. I've done it myself, and they sometimes look at me like I'm crazy because where's that coming from? But you're telling them something, and they not always remember how they feel. And it's a quote that I did not make up, but I use it all the time. What you said, but they remember how they felt, and that really builds on it. And that ties in with the power of empathy. One of the things, and Connie's been with me when I've done the life management skills program, I put up empathy, sympathy, and apathy, and asked for definition. Well, most of the kids knew sympathy, almost all of them. Not many knew apathy, and hardly any knew empathy. And that's a sign of our culture. But having empathy, putting yourself in their shoes, if they are overwhelmed, and really overwhelmed and stressed, and you're telling them they have to do more, you're adding to that overwhelmness and stress. Part of the reason for the time management using their schedules is to make time for themselves to see where the time goes, because it does go quickly. So putting yourself in their position, and sometimes a kind word adding to that deposit is, I know this is a lot, and I know this is not easy, but I believe you can do it, and this is the reason why. Having that empathy lets them know you relate. And I think Connie does that well at the center, explain it's not just do it, here's why, but have an empathetic ear for them. They'll eventually really loosen up, and opens up the communication gap.
Yeah, when I test a lot of kids who are pretty far behind, and one of the other books that I'm reading was a Love and Logic book on turning on students who are turned off. And to think about it from the perspective of all day they keep having reminders that they're not stacking up at school, and whether it's testing, whether it's what's going on in school. They're aware. And then to come home, and if they feel they don't stack up again. And so when I see some of these kids and I see such long faces and such how fearful they are of the placement test that I have to do, and and then I think that's part of how Kumon works, with that easy, comfortable starting point, easing them in, and you start to see them build again and build back up their self-esteem and realizing they can do things.
Yeah, if we make it seem like it's doable for them and support them, that's half the battle, I believe.
Yeah, and starting to feel success. So that comfortable starting point where they get hundreds for the first couple weeks, it's like, all right, this feels good, and some of these kids haven't seen hundreds in a long time. And so it kind of helps me put in place why Kumon works. That's another piece of the Kumon method, why it works so well. So, and this is something, some of the book that I was just referring to, I wish I had read this when my kids were younger. About solving their problems, which is what I did too much of, versus teaching them how to solve it for themselves. So, and a lot of this is very easy for me to say because your kids are not my kids. So I'm not as emotionally attached, although I am definitely attached to them, but I can step back and I can kind of see the positives and see what's working. Whereas parents, sometimes I think it's harder to recognize that in our own children. So, in helping them learn how to solve their problems. So if you focus on what's working, like really reflect on what's working with your child, and then work to change or help them change what's not working. So some of the kids I think that have started have amazing time management skills. There's a couple of them. And there were others that are struggling with that. And I've seen improvement through what we're doing with time management. Some don't need any help with the motivation, but then I have some that do. So really taking a look at what it is that your child is working, and then really start to support them on making changes to fix the things that are not working as well. Empowering them and not pointing out, and this is another thing I wish I did when my kids were younger. I just was a problem solver for me, and I looked at what wasn't working, and I just fixed that. And I didn't give enough positive, like Rob, deposits, telling them the things that, recognizing, because in my head it was working, so why mention it? That's good. Let's just focus. And for me, it was just, okay, let's just improve this. Let's improve this. But to them, I think the message was different. And so it's easier for me now. Again, my kids are older, that I can reflect on that and wish I had done that differently.
Tom, I'm just going to throw a major point in here. A lot has to do with trust. And I know, Connie, you've heard this from me probably 1,000 times about how children hate to disappoint their parents, but not always show it in that manner. They show, I guess I say it best when I say it best, defense is an offense. They get very touchy if you mention the subject. But a part of that, once you start to develop and talk to them about how you believe in them, remember, we're separating the behavior from the person. And we may not like the behavior, but the person may be a good person. Helping them understand that you believe in them, they have the power to do it, and if you're communicating with them, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, it lessens the impact of them hating to disappoint you and then responding to that or reacting to that disappointment. Yeah,
no, definitely. Kids definitely don't like to disappoint their parents. I've had some pretty strong examples of that recently. Problem solving, using Kumon, and if they're behind in Kumon, using it as a tool again to be able to discuss what are the consequences if you get behind. And we are going to cover that a little bit more in depth in another slide. And then if they want to take a day off, discussing with them getting ahead. So, okay, I want off Saturday because it's my birthday. Well, then maybe we can double up on Friday, because think of how great that'll feel that you'll be ahead rather than behind. So, just helping them walk through that thought process. And again, we have a tool that we're going to share with you a little bit later. and understanding that success is a process. And Kumon has definitely, Kumon and my horse have taught me this, that you have to have patience, and it's not going to be a straight line to getting to where you want to get with the kids. They're going to have, they're going to do really well, and then they're going to fall off, and then they're going to get back up, and so being able to be patient and understand that the struggle with learning is important, and it's part of the joy of learning, because that with that struggle, when we finally understand and we overcome the struggle, is where the joy starts to come in. And I refer back to the woman who had a huge impact in my life was my Latin teacher in high school. And we were having a conversation a couple years ago, and she had said to me that she was very turned off by teaching after I graduated, or after the classes after me, that they really started to shift the learning onto her, not the kids, the school system, so that she had to meet the learners where they were at, rather than having the kids figure out how they learn best. So her example was that, some kids, if flashcards work, then they get to do well in tests with flashcards, then that's what they do. But if they find flashcards don't work for them, then they have to figure out another way to, and she's there to support them and give them ideas. But that is that struggle, and being active in your learning rather than passive, and putting the responsibility of the learning on the teacher. So responsibility. I'm going to turn that
question that I always ask, and the answers are almost consistently the same with most of the younger kids. As they get older, I think they start to see it a little differently. But whose responsibility is, I ask children, whose responsibility is for your education? If you go around the room, they'll tell you the teacher, for the most part. And, although they're half right, the way I see it and the way I explain it is every relationship is 50-50. And you're responsible for the learning aspect, and the teacher is responsible for the teaching aspect. And once they get that concept a little more, then if they're having, and not every teacher is great, and not every teacher connects with the children, and certainly a lot of them feel that the teacher is not doing their job or whatever, but it's still holding them responsible for their education. What do you have to do, rather than just throw your hands up? And many of them do in classes, and they'll take a failing grade because of the teacher. And I explain to them that they're actually giving that control of their education to someone else. And it's a big point for them to understand how important it is for them to learn, taking the responsibility. And what does it take? If you're not getting it, you get extra help, you spend more time at home rather than not. And I think Connie brings a lot of that to them, and Kumon brings a lot of that to them, to help them understand this is your education. Let's make it work for you. Mm-hmm. And as it's written there, we live in a bullying society. And for most part, even sometimes parents, and my daughter's a high school teacher, parents will come in with a one-sided part of the conversation, not getting the whole thing, and blame the teacher themselves or the school system without realizing their children aren't really participating. A great example I have of this, and we had a young lady that's really successful. She's one of our, and it's from Kumon. In the beginning, was struggling with test taking. I want to ask the question, how important it is for you to pass that test, as a coach, as you're 1 to 10, how important is it for you to pass that test? They give it a 10 rating because it's important. It really is important for my education. I want to feel good. My parents will be. But then if you ask them honestly, how much effort are they putting into it? And on a scale of 1 to 10, you start to see the difference. When they're honest, they'll say 5 or 6. I says, well, what are your chances then for you to really get a good mark? You're only doing half, 5% of what you need to really, what you feel need is important to pass the test. That is changing their mindset. That's letting them help think more about what they can do as a responsibility. And remember, in our entitlement rage culture, it really knocks the heck out of responsibility. So refocusing them, helping them understand what is it that they want for themselves.
So when I was doing some research for this, I thought this was a good slide. I never really thought about responsibility, but being accountable, doing your best. A lot of the excuses I get when people don't keep up with, oh, I didn't have time. And so I'm trying to figure out how I need to how a supportive way to come back to say that, but really just saying essentially, it wasn't important. I had other things that were more important. And so, and I find it hard to believe some of these kids, it's 20 minutes, literally 20 minutes a day. So I find it hard to believe they can't find that 20 minutes. Okay, so communication. Noticing improvements, and I had a student recently who started, and again, this was one of those that came in with the long face and was very beaten up, and did not have a very high opinion of her ability, and you could start to see her build some confidence, and it was really cool to watch. And then all of a sudden something changed, and I had a conversation with my assistant who works. I could see something in 2 classes in her eyes was different, and Dad had said something, and amazing to me how that undid like 6 weeks of work. Just saying something negative, and it just really, we don't realize the things that we say have such an impact on the kids. So if you could notice improvements in your kids, and notice improvements in their attitude, are they approaching Kumon with a better attitude? Are they a little bit more accurate? Are they being more consistent with their work? Are they being neater? Every Kumon trains us to look for certain goals for every class and for students. So if I came in and wanted, to get 10 things out of the kids, I overwhelm them, and they're never going to hit all 10 things that I'm looking for in that. So if I focus on making sure, this one thing. So if right now we have a bad attitude, but we show a good attitude, and you recognize that, it's going to pull them up, and you're going to get more positive days and get a better attitude as you go along. Focusing on their strengths, listing daily victories. With my kids, once in a while I make them go around, and my husband, and make them go around the table, and what are you thankful for? What was good today? Those type of conversations I think are really important. Speaking about education, homework, and Kumon as not as a punishment but as a privilege, and the language here is so subtle. When you say, oh, you have to do your Kumon, versus, you get to do your Kumon. And people think I'm nuts with that, but really framing it as not a drudgery or a chore or something that is negative, but making it really positive. And I have families, I have kids, I can't keep enough worksheets in their hands. And the parents approach Kumon in a very positive manner, and the kids just seem to approach it the same way. So really, homework's the same way. If you dread homework, they're going to know that, and they're going to pick up on it. And hopefully, if you've been with me long enough, homework's not an issue anyway. The content is easy. Being enthusiastic. I had a student, I've referenced this before, that came in to do a really hard packet in level I. And when I saw her, it was actually the same student Coach Rob was talking about. I said to her, you get to do this today. I'm so excited. And again, it's a really hard that the kids sometimes struggle with. And you could see her whole demeanor change. And she approached that with such a great attitude. She aced it. She didn't struggle. And so sometimes just reframing something from a negative to a positive, helping the kids see it differently, being enthusiastic, and reinforcing why you have them at Kumon. That again, it's not a punishment, that it is a privilege. And in a lot of countries, it really, really is a privilege to be able to afford to come to a Kumon. If anybody has any questions, please just type it in the chat. I know some people joined after. So,
Todd, I wanted to talk real briefly about the strength part of why we focus on the strengths. When there's an acknowledgement of what they do well. When we talk about our natural strengths, we take for granted what we do well very often. We just do it. And when we don't do it as well, we're very much on ourselves. So we don't, many times, even as adults, give ourselves credit for what we do well. The expectation is there to do better all the time. And sometimes we slack off. I'm sure we said it to ourselves, geez, I'm better than this. I really messed this up. But when they can connect to that strength, when they can connect it, it's something that they do well, and they're hearing it from someone, an outsider, especially an outsider, I mean, parent or as a coach. When they're hearing it, they can reflect on it. It raises their self-worth. There's an internal acknowledgement, and that dialogue that goes in the head that I can't do this starts to change. So the strength may be not directly with reading or doing their Kumon, but it may be something about being kind or having a great ability to speak. It's acknowledging that strength that really, really helps them move forward. It clears a lot of the clutter, the emotional clutter out anyway.
I shared with the kids something that I learned this week. I had never thought of where the word self-esteem came from, and it's the estimation of oneself. And it really, when the person I was listening to said that, it really kind of changed it for me. And again, I understand how important self-esteem is, but puts it in a different light.
This is one of the more powerful topics, especially when doing the parenting group, talking to parents. I never understood, and I know parents fully don't, a lot of them fully don't, and not for them being modest, about modeling. You know, they say the kids not always pay attention to us or do what we say, but they really hear and see everything we do. You know, same gender parent is the number one role model in that parent's life. And so whatever we do, if there's certain things that we're negative about, certain things that we don't believe in, certain things that annoy us, there's a great tendency that they're going to pick up on that. And for instance, if we're being disorganized, and I've had my own bouts with disorganization, but especially when I was in corporate, because I was running around, but at the last minute, I'd always get things done if I had a presentation, but my kids would see me up at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, being a model, even though I was working hard, I was modeling something that, you know, they would wind up doing. And my son did as his younger boy for the last minute to do his homework. So how we model, if we're committed, especially the Kumon, and I know home grading has been a really tough subject. We've talked about it quite often, especially when I've done with the other Kumon instructors, how important home grading is. And it does. It shows involvement. It shows priority. There's immediate feedback. And it shows that you buy in, that this is worth it. You're really showing that this connection, and you're making the connection with that child at that point of what they're doing.
This is where Kumon becomes a tool again, that you can help. It really can. It's something you can do together. You know, that you're committed to do together, and the home grading is a piece of that. There are some levels that are not, that it's easier for us to home grade here in the high level reading, and sometimes in the high level math, although, you know, you could work with your student in the math, I think, to be able to grade. And actually the same lecture I listened to the other day, I need to change my vocabulary and stop with the grading. He feels as if the grading has a really bad connotation from school. And so I'm trying to, and I just caught that home grading, calling it scoring. So if we score something is different. You know, again, it's something minor, but I can understand to be graded, you know, after taking tests all day, it's tough.
And it sounds like judgment.
Yes.
Going off a child, and we don't want it to be judgment. We want it to be feedback and connection. Yeah. Hey, what's the real benefit when they do? I know you've written it down for the student when they come to the center. What's the benefit of the home grading?
Because they can work on new work when they come with me, and they've got the benefit of understanding their mistakes on the ones prior to coming to me. And if they don't understand, so if they're home and they've graded and they still don't understand it, when they come in, they can say to me, this is what I don't understand. So then we can get that out of the way and then move forward. I have families who don't home grade at all. And the kids really get bogged down with corrections sometimes. And I also, when some families, you know, the kids will do the front and the back page and nothing in between because the parents aren't going to open it. and it's very interesting. It just, my parents who home grade, that stuff never happens to, because they know what's going on, and the kids don't try because I think they know, again, it's a team effort.
God, and I'm going to just throw this in because I've been thinking about this the last few weeks, and I meant to ask you the other day. If they have home grading done, when they know they got to come to Kumon, let's say Thursday night, and they have the home grading done, does it make it less stressful to come into Kumon for that evening for them?
I think so, and I think that the stress comes from the packs of corrections, because it's not fun to have to, if you made a mistake a week ago, to have to correct it today. And I keep flip-flopping a little bit on what I do. I used to think it's sacrilege, literally, to throw out any graded work, because to me, that's an opportunity lost of learning from a mistake. I have had some of my colleagues pull me to when some colleagues actually don't even grade work that comes back from home. They just throw it out, which kind of shocked me. But to me, it's important that they do have the learning from that mistake. So sometimes I'll put it out into, so a couple days of corrections. But for the kids, it's so not fun. They'd much rather do new work, and they'd much rather make fewer mistakes. And quite honestly, I can add, if I know somebody's not home grading, I have to do more repetition, which isn't a bad thing that they practice, but I will see, so this is Kumon working on another level, the improvement as they repeat a packet. So even without that feedback, you will start to see improvement, but it takes a lot more practice to get there.
Right. And were you talking about it one more, just because I wanted to stay with that one more second. Do you see, was there a scale of accomplishment, anything relative to home grading?
Scale of accomplishment?
Yeah, or elevating to the next level?
Oh, yeah, the difference is amazing. I mapped it out. I have two that I've mapped out years ago. And when I tell you on the graph, it's like this much difference. And getting to grade level versus not getting to grade level. And in fact, the one got to grade level and then excelled beyond that, compared to the other one who fell off, same amount of time, never made it to grade level, and quit being frustrated. So it's a big difference. I see it, I see it in the kids' progress.
Yeah, and just to throw in with that, when we talk about accomplishment, we want to fuel their enthusiasm or their good feeling. Accomplishment is the number one thing. Yeah. And they don't get that until they have achievement. So this is helping them achieve. And I think it's a turning point. It can be a turning point for those attending Kumon to feeling that accomplishment maybe more impactful, more quickly, if we really stick with the home grading.
Yeah.
Let me just hit this, and then attending regularly is a big part of that. Without the consistency there's the message we get from the children. Remember, it's not what we say. We can tell them how important Kumon is, but if we don't attend regularly, you're breaking up their consistency. You're breaking up what they feel is the priority. If I'm not talking about things come up or, I'm on vacation or illness or whatever. I'm talking about if they sense kids are very bright, they pick up on everything. So if we don't attend regularly, it breaks the consistency.
Right. And, act in words and actions, I always say. And with my daughters, I can tell you, we had, when they were both in lacrosse, and they love lacrosse, and there was one time that they fooled around and they didn't get their Kumon done. Kumon and homework done before lacrosse practice, and they missed it because my priority has always been education. And they only missed it once, because after that they made sure to make time. It was like early time management. We got that stuff done before, so we didn't miss another practice. So whereas if I had let them slide on that, to me that's the message is saying lacrosse is more important. Yeah. And I had made it clear that was not the case.
Absolutely. And when we talk about self-reflection, a lot of messages that go out to people, self-assessment, self-reflection, and self-criticism. That's not what this is about. This is about understanding the power of a role model for the parents, the power. It's the greatest power you have for your children from their date of birth, because as Dr. Phil has always said, we're born with a clean slate. Our modeling is what really helps them develop. Besides teaching them hot and cold and good and bad, our modeling, they watch what we do. And if you really self-reflect on what you want them to accomplish in the light of Kumon, as far as being organized or talking great about the education, the enthusiasm, it really makes a difference. So self-reflection, some checkpoints where you think you can do something a little different to help that child get through this with less stress and less anxiety, as they say.
And more joy.
Yes. The love of learning, right?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. Negotiation. This is where myself, and when I talk about parenting, it's not like I'm coming from a space that I was a great parent. I just learned, and I learned the hard way through coaching by working with the kids and then reflecting, okay, what's the challenge here? We talk about negotiation.
You wish that you knew then what you know now, right, Rob?
Yeah.
I know,
absolutely.
I do. I definitely do.
You know, negotiation, if I may, it's not, well, if you eat your dinner, you could watch TV. There should be no negotiation in that. If you do your chores tonight, you'll get this. Negotiation is to do something more and different and making sure they're taking care of their responsibilities first, and then getting the reward. Negotiation, and I've worked with parents where we've come up with contracts. I know Connie brought this up in many of her speeches about writing a contract for a cell phone, or writing a contract to go on TV and play games, or wanting a new game. A written contract signed by 3 people. It's a visual, and you can help these kids, these young adults, responsible by showing them, here's your contract. This is what you agreed to. It's so important, so powerful. That negotiation is for their responsibility, not for something that should be done. I'm going to applaud you for taking a shower. No, you take a shower every day. You get clean. You
brush your teeth every day, right?
Exactly.
That's what's expected.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing with negotiation, and I learned this the hard way, you know, here I had both of my daughters doing 2 subjects with Kumon, and I used to negotiate whether I realized it or not. And so, you know, oh, well, you know, we did really good today. Let's not do Kumon. Oh, we had such a long day. Let's not, you know, so this negotiation. And what I started to realize is I'm getting this, you know, this constant, let's not, and that conversation would take time, too much time, and then if the time that you argued with me, it could have been done. And so what I realized is that and this was too late, like much later, I wish I had realized it sooner, is that that's non-negotiable. Kumon's done every day. You want tomorrow off? Good, do 2 today. And I shifted the responsibility for that, and by not negotiating that, I had less headache. They got it done faster, and they took more responsibility. And again, I had to have been 5 or 6 years into Kumon before I learned that. So it's important not to negotiate, like Coach Rob said, in that manner.
Yeah, and it's extremely, as far as chores, it ties back to the responsibility. Every child, to me, should have a chore, because number one, he's participating in the family. He's starting that responsibility, and when he accomplishes that, he gets that fulfillment. There's a four-tier thing for chores. I think every child should have a chores. I'm not talking about cleaning the whole house, but whatever that specific chore, and acknowledge the effort for it. But that should be part of the negotiation.
Okay, so I promised a tool, and we did create a tool to try to help understand the consequences and benefits. You're going to review this, Rob?
Yeah, when we understand what we're feeling, let me back up a second. Consequences are usually related to people, many people, as punishment, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about consequences. Consequences: if you don't hand something in on time in school, you don't do a report, you get a bad grade. Consequences, and one of the unseen, the unlying things that kids don't always recognize, especially in Kumon. There's a twofold here thing that they're going to feel bad about. Number one is parent is not getting their things done. Number 2 is Miss Connie. They're not getting their done. So when we ask about how do you feel when you don't do something, we go up to the negative first. When you don't do something, disappointed, or overwhelmed, frustrated, or angry. Within here is what we talk about, the core values, which is everybody's value, whether it's what's important to you. And when we talk about integrity, we talk about keeping our word. And we ask the young adults over and over, if someone promised you something, don't keep their word, what do you feel? Well, I'm disappointed, I get angry. They go through that whole layout of faces and feelings. But the reality part of this is that personal integrity. Well, we don't keep our words to ourselves. This is a major consequence in life for anybody. If we don't keep our word to ourselves, it's the first thing that drops that self-esteem Connie was talking about. It's the first thing it takes, because we do it to ourselves. It's not so much what others say, it's what we say to ourselves, and this starts that negative vocabulary in our head.
So we created this tool to try to help the kids visually, and we did introduce this to them the other night at the meeting to help them understand and put this so they can start to think about the things that do happen when we don't do it, but then also thinking about the things that what does happen when we do it, and we take responsibility and we do what we're supposed to do. We feel good, our parents feel good, and then trying to draw back to that they'll start progressing more quickly, and how that makes you feel. Again, back to that, there is joy in working and struggling in learning. That is part of it. If it was all easy, it would not be fun.
And the benefits is actually how they feel about themselves, and with that benefit, they feel more motivated or more secure that they can do it. Once that overwhelm starts to settle in, and they become anxious, it really deteriorates the way they're thinking of what they can accomplish, and it's just more. Now, Kumon becomes a burden, because it's another place they're feeling disappointed, overwhelmed, frustrated, and angry. And what Miss Connie's doing, and I really respect, she's trying to change that mentality. If we can make them see the benefits, they're going to feel good about this, and they'll feel better everywhere. Everywhere.
Okay. So I've turned into a Dr. Daniel Amen groupie. He's a psychiatrist that has done a lot of studying on the brain, and this is part of where I'm getting a lot of my what I'm learning about the brain. But when they, like Coach Rob said, when you are successful in something, it brings positive feelings. And when you start to feel positive, then you want to do it more. And I think this speaks to when we start Kumon and it's easy, and you get those hundreds and you want to do more because you want to feel it feels good. So noticing the things like finishing faster, that feels good. Finishing earlier in the day, so it's off my plate, feels good. Getting positive feedback from mom and dad, that feels good. And starting to see a difference in school, that feels good. So this feeds them and their understanding of the importance of them doing their Kumon, or that Kumon is helping them be able to increase their abilities and their potential. So it's just a cycle that once they start to feel it, that it'll feed itself. But it is a process. It takes time, and it's not going to change overnight. So we just need to be aware of that.
Yeah, and Connie, a good part of the positive feedback is acknowledging the effort, not so much the result. If they do it upon themselves, or if they jump on Kumon and they're getting things done, acknowledging the effort really forward the emotion.
Yeah, there's a lot of times that the kids can get 6s across the board, but I see something else in what they've done that I'm happy about. Those scores aren't bothering me. As a parent, you may not feel that way, but there's other things that I'm looking at that sometimes the scores will come. So yeah, definitely. So I need your help to be able to bring this together. It's been a little hard to engage the parents, which is a little bit of a struggle for me right now, because what it's driven home is that, to me and to Coach Rob, is how important your involvement is in this process. So being able to communicate with me, responding to the emails and the surveys, watching the videos with the kids. And if you could, pick 5 things to do each week, find one positive thing to say to the kids. Start scoring. See, I caught it there. I didn't put grading. Scoring their work. And if you need help with that, I have videos on that portal that I sent out. There's a one math grading video and a reading grading video. And you can come in and talk to us, and we'll help you learn how to grade if you're uncomfortable. Score if you're uncomfortable. I have to change those videos now. I just realized it. Make an agreement, like Coach Rob said. I do have a format, and I could actually put that up on, I could put a blank one up on the portal so that you can download that and make an agreement with the kids so that you're all on the same, everybody's on the same page. They understand. Understand when they mess up, they're going to mess up. It's not the end of the world. And then this is one of those things as a parent, I wish I could go back because I have some major fails in that area early when the kids were younger, thinking that it's the end of the world. It's not. It's a growth and a learning process. And there's a lot of times that they're doing what they need to do. So focusing on that. And send me updates. Let me know, did you have a good week? Did you have a bad week? Is there anything going on that I need to know about? I don't hear it all from the kids. A lot of times I hear only the positives from the kids. I try to pull out the negatives, but I don't always hear the negatives. So, although some kids, I got to tell you, some kids tell me more than you'd want me to know. So anyway, I really need everybody to be engaged. Ask questions if you have any questions about this presentation. I know not everybody was able to get on the presentation, but you can send me questions after the fact. Was there anything else you wanted to close with, Rob?
Just keep in mind how important it is if there's enthusiasm. We've said this over and over. Parenting is not easy, and for us to be able to sit here and tell you what we need your help with is very easy to do because it's very clear how important your role is. But for you that are working hard and really running children around in sports, etc., really deciding where the priority is and how you can help in this matter, and doesn't mean it's going to be hours per week, maybe 10 or 15 minutes at a clip to make that the deposit and secure what they're doing is really needed. It's a three-way deal here. I didn't know much about Kumon until I started working with Connie, but I see Connie and the students can go a certain way, and certain students will excel even more than others because the mindset we talked about, but really helping them along the line and being involved, and just communication sometimes on a positive note is such a big thing.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the video here, but if anybody has a question, you can type it in the chat or the Q&A area. And